right, we're now with the Metro Fire Department, and I'll note that Councilman Stein is still with us, and he was here for the Emergency Communications Center also. Chief, if you could introduce yourself and your colleagues and then make whatever presentation you'd like to make, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. My name's Richard White. I'm the Interim Director Chief of the Nashville Fire Department. I brought with me Deputy Director Mike Franklin, Finance Officer Leanne Hager, and her Assistant Gina Gibbs.
Okay. And would you like to make a presentation?
Oh, yes, sir. We've had an interesting few months with the fire department since the new management team, or the management team as we know it now, has taken over. We've done a lot of analysis and a lot of assessment. Basically, what we have looked at is where we came from, where we're heading, and how quickly can we make the good things happen. As you well know, with the approval of yourself and the Metro Council, we were awarded a second federal grant, SAFER grant. That's the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Responses. Lost it there for a minute. And this happened in January 1st of 2013. We brought some new people on board, and of course there's assistance from the federal government to help us take care of their salaries and benefits, with the city picking it up at a later date. Some other things that we've done: in 2014 we opened 2 new fire stations. In South Nashville we opened Engine 21. In North Nashville we opened Engine 11. This is going to allow us to serve the taxpayers, the public that we're sworn to protect, in a much better fashion. The Nashville Fire Department increased advanced life support transport capabilities with the addition of 3 medic units to a total of 22 static units. The real emphasis on this is we've been long overdue as far as implementing new medic units, ambulances, and we did this at this time without any additional staff, and we reallocated resources and we made this happen. We've also picked up $1.8 million in new apparatus, 2 pumpers, 2 engine companies, and 1 tiller tractor-drawn tiller aerial device. This once again helps us maintain our high readiness as far as our fleet is concerned, and once again helps us serve the taxpayers better, as well as making it a much safer environment for the employees that respond on these vehicles. We fully recovered the cost of the buyout. We had 77 people retired during the buyout, and we fully recovered that by the start of the next budget cycle. And I think that's something I have to tip my hat to Ms. Hager and her staff for helping us do that. But I'm very proud of that. We reorganized the new management structures. You well know we've gone from promoted positions in our management staff to assigned positions. This gives us a lot of agility as far as how we're going to manage a major department in Nashville. First of all, it puts the onus on the management staff, myself included, to make sure that we perform. And I think this is something that you see in the private sector every day. And once again, we're proud that we're in this position here, and we're obligated to perform, and we will. We distributed fire prevention literature to over 65,000 students in the Metro Public School system. Once again, one of the tenets of fire protection is to start out when the future taxpayers are very young, and we can build on that as we progress. We also have plans to implement a little bit different slant on the way we've done with distributing smoke detectors in the past. We've got permission to actually install these smoke detectors. That's going to help us somewhat as far as our budget goes, because we can actually pick up most of these smoke detectors now from the state fire marshal's office. So once again, trying to take our fiduciary responsibilities and our service to the taxpayers to the nth degree. We've got several goals in front of us. By July 1, 2015, the fire department will replace several pieces of large equipment and medical apparatus with new models which will provide a safer, more efficient response fleet. When we put these 3 medic units in before the start of this budget cycle, we actually have those medic units responding now as we speak with reserve apparatus. One thing that we've done with the monies that are going to be coming down the pipeline, which are already in the pipeline to purchase new equipment is start off by ordering 6 new medic units. That's going to actually give us 3 for the ones that were in place and hopefully allow us to put 3 more in place for the next budget cycle. We're going to by July 1, 2015, we're going to experience a 2% reduction in response times for our emergency field personnel, as evidenced by the replacement of the current radio-based fire alerting system with an IP Internet Protocol radio-based alerting system. Right now, due to the antiquity of the alerting system that we have in place, a lot of times calls get stacked on top of each other. This new system is going to help us on our ISO ratings because it's also radio-based as well as IP-based. But it will allow multiple calls to go out simultaneously, so we don't have calls pending, waiting on for it to get dispatched. And this could, in all likelihood, this is going to save us more than 2%, but we're being kind of conservative on that estimate. We're going to provide a more enhanced diagnostic medical service to the community with the purchase of new cardiac monitors for all ALS advanced life support engine companies and ALS medic units. Once again, the present state of our cardiac monitors is they're quite old now. We have to really stay on top of them to keep them functioning, and this is a primary tenet to good cardiac care anytime someone's having a cardiac incident out in the field. So we're going to be able to better serve the public with that. Also, we're going to pick up new cardiac monitors and automatic electronic defibrillators for our standard engine truck companies. The ones that we had in the past, like so many of our inventory as far as our equipment is concerned, is actually getting a little old. So we're going to pick these up, and it'll also allow us to, if we have a paramedic working in a non-ALS company and a fire company, with these new defibrillators, AEDs, then they're going to be able to perform as a paramedic. So we're going to be able to have the equipment in place to wherever a paramedic is working in the field in suppression operations, they're going to be able to operate at the highest level of their credentialing. There's several strategic issues. In order to be successful in meeting the emergency response needs of our citizens and visitors of our community, response times of EMS fire and rescue events must meet or exceed the levels defined by the fire department standards of cover. With continued growth of our communities, it's critical that Metro continue funding the fire department's multi-year facilities master plan as a means of augmenting the OSHA and the ADA compliance standards and improve fire station gender privacy. Also, another strategic issue is to improve the technological innovations that can provide our command officers, firefighters, and EMS personnel with rapid and accurate information with on-the-scene status updates. The number of occupancies in Nashville needing formal fire inspections exceeds the ability of the fire marshal's office workforce. This is going to necessitate adding resources to fire prevention. One thing that's happened in the past year is going online with the one-stop shop with codes and fire prevention. This seems to be working out very well. One of our goals, though, or a strategic issue that I think we need to do, that we need to meet in order to better serve our customers, our taxpayers' customers, we'd like to get to a point in time when someone requests an inspection, we can get that within 24 hours. We need these additional personnel in fire prevention so we can do that. Want me to go over some numbers now?
Sure.
All right. Some of the things that we're requesting 31 FTEs and $2.566 million in improvements. This is in EMS. Now, EMS is traditionally carried into GSD funding, and what we're going to try to do here is, first of all, due to the buyout, we had several rank positions that were left. Now, these weren't frivolous rank positions. These are rank positions that there are necessity in the field for EMS. Two of those positions that were vacated were the assistant chiefs in EMS. You have one assistant chief as a shift commander over each shift in EMS, which has 4 shifts. We've lost 2 of those. We want to replace those, but one thing we're trying to do on that as well is to have these assigned positions. They'll no longer be assistant chiefs, they'll be shift commanders, and there'll be a a minor reduction in pay, not for the ones that are still incumbent as assistant chiefs, but for the people that are coming into this rank structure. And what we're trying to do there is to save some money along the way so we can put more people in the field. We'll have 5 district chiefs vacated in EMS at that particular point in time. Now, in EMS, the only field supervisor is a district chief, so we need to fill those. And those are going to be 2 that'll be vacated due to the fact that we're going to be pushing some district chiefs up into this shift commanders, formerly assistant chiefs position, and also we presently have 3 vacancies right there. The big one that we're looking at are 20 paramedic 2 positions. It takes 20 paramedic 2 positions in order to fully staff 3 ALS medic units. So we're going to need those positions to be put in place. Another thing that we've asked for are 4 paramedic 3 positions. Paramedic 3 position would be the equivalent to a field training officer, as you're aware, as you're probably familiar with in the police department. One of the things that we get into as far as what necessitates this need as far as those paramedic 3 positions are the EMS units are very dynamic. They're not very stationary, unlike an engine or a truck company in suppression operations. They're moving about the city. What happens in many occasions throughout the year is a new technique is proposed to be used in the field as far as offering good medical care to our taxpayers. A new piece of equipment comes online, and in several instances, we have to wait several months in order for this new technique or this new piece of equipment to be explained to our field personnel. And the purpose of those paramedic 3 positions will be actually get out in the field. They'll be assigned to work on a medic unit. They can hook up with a medic unit at a hospital, for example, maybe give them a 10 or 15-minute talk on the new procedure or the new piece of equipment. And suppression, we're requesting about $3.4 million in improvements with the addition of 46 FTEs. 2 of these are going to be shift commanders. Once again, it's the same thing that we're trying to do in EMS is get away from the assistant chief's rank, go with assigned positions there. Right now, we presently have 3 vacancies. We want to put 2 of those shift commanders in place. We want an improvement to hire 6 lieutenants. As far as the new equipment purchase is concerned, we're wanting to pick up what are called mini pumpers. 2 mini pumpers. We have several areas within the county that is pretty difficult for some of our full-size pieces of fire equipment to gain access to, whether it be going over a culvert or a private bridge or something like that. The frontline equipment, generally speaking, is a little bit too heavy to do that. So these mini pumpers, and I'll use, for example, in the Hermitage area, Jolton area, Forest Hills area, a lot of the drives and everything aren't conducive for a real heavy piece of equipment. These things are much lighter, and they'll be able to make the steep grades. They'll be able to go over most of the culverts and private bridges that they encounter. And at the same time, they'll still be a Class A pumper. They'll have a full-size pump on them. We'll be able to staff it with 4 individuals, in all likelihood, more likely not 3 individuals. And essentially, we'll be picking up 2 fire companies. Now, that's going to help us on our ISO rating. It's going to help us better serve the taxpayers that maybe don't live right at the curb like many people do in the urban services area. So the way we look at that is we're going to increase we're going to hopefully take care of our ISO ratings in this part and also provide better service to the taxpayers. We need 19 more firefighters to operate in a continuous rotation. What we've done with the new management team and our new way of doing business as far as operations is concerned, the Maximus report that was done last year actually recommended that we combine EMS and fire. Previous to the Maximus study and previous to last April, what we had was a separate operations section for EMS and a separate operations section for fire. We've combined them. One of the ways that we've combined them is when a recruit graduates from our fire academy as a firefighter, they're also trained as an EMT, and they'll do rotations in EMS. Generally speaking, they're going to spend 1/3 of their time in EMS, let's say a 6-month tour tour, come back into a fire company for a year, and we're constantly rotating these people. And over the long haul, this is eventually going to give us this generic operational employee, the one that knows EMS very well and the one that knows suppression very well. This is also going to make us, allow us to be much more agile as a department. In the past, we always had to hurry up and wait. If we're going to do something new in EMS or something new in fire, we're going to have people that can go in either direction. So if we see that we're going to have a much greater emphasis in fire as far as personnel goes, then we can use these same people. That would be counting on EMS calls to drop, which I don't think they're going to do. And the same thing holds true with EMS if call volumes pick up. In training, we're asking for 6 more FTEs and $482,000 in improvements. Right now, we only have about 4 full-time instructors at our academy, and that includes 2 supervisory personnel. One of the discrepancies, or one of the things that had some of our fire ratings drop with ISO, had to do with the fact that we weren't doing enough training and we weren't documenting what we did. Now, we're taking care of the documentation through software. Image Trend is the brand name or the trademark on the software that we're using, so that anytime we perform training, it's not going to be as awkward as it was in the past as far as documenting this. And also, we need to provide more training. We're looking at having field district training officers. We have 6 fire districts as far as suppression is concerned, and we can assign 1 training officer for each district. One thing that we get into, and it's a way we've done business in the past, anytime that we have to have people sitting in seats in a classroom or out on the training ground training, we're obligated to pull companies out of service. And right now, we generally pull about 5 companies out of service out of a total of 55. So we're pulling about 9% of our companies out of service every time we offer a day of training at our academy. And what this is going to allow us to do is do more of that training in-house, more of it in district. Once again, when they're down there at the academy, the companies need the training and everything, but we may be leaving some holes in as far as the city is concerned, so we're going to try and accommodate that. As far as prevention goes, we're looking at an additional 5 FTEs, and one of these we're proposing is a ASO 3 pay grade. This would be for a fire protection engineer, professional engineer that would actually be signing off on our sprinkler plans and things of that sort. This is going to give us more validity as far as what we're doing day in, day out, and dealing with the development community. We're wanting to add 3 more fire inspectors. As I alluded to earlier, as I spoke of earlier, we'd like to get to a point, or like to get to a day where when someone requests an inspection, we can give them 24-hour service. You call in at 10 a.m. this morning, hopefully we can have somebody out there by 10 a.m. tomorrow. And these additional fire inspectors are going to help us accomplish that, hopefully. The other personnel that we were looking at right there, 1 more would be to augment our fire investigators. This is going to protect the citizens. This is going to protect the firefighters and everybody in the food chain as far as that goes. But arson, I won't say that it's increasing drastically, but we have a pretty good record internally with our investigators now as far as investigation, cause and determination, as far as arrest, and actually convictions through the DA's office with suspected or convicted arsonists. We want to hone our skills on this more. We want to have more people in the field so that we can make Nashville the last place that an arsonist wants to reside, in a short story. As far as facilities maintenance is concerned, we're requesting 2 FTEs and $131,000 in improvements. In the heyday of our facilities maintenance, we had 16 employees. Now we're down to 3 employees and 1 part-timer. Now, this isn't as bad as it seems, because every time a new station comes online, General Services pretty much takes care of the facilities maintenance of that. But presently, we've got over 25 stations that we still have to provide that maintenance for, and we're working a little short-handed right there. We're looking for another Informational System Advisor 2 position. This is going to help us as far as creating a great IT component to the Nashville Fire Department. So many things that we got downgraded by with the last ISO visit was just due to the fact that we didn't have the IT agility to actually document the things that we needed to do, to pull up the statistics that we needed to pull up, and this is going to help us accommodate that. We've got requesting an increase as far as $201,000 in the past couple of years. For various reasons, we have not been able to give our uniform personnel the full clothing allowance that at one time we were obligated to give them. I think this past year we got $330 for each individual. Traditionally, that's been $400. And at the same time, we probably had about 100 people that previously received a clothing allowance that didn't get it this past year. So we're wanting to get that back to where uniform personnel are going to be neat and professional looking when they go out here into the public. We're looking at another $1.2 million as far as increments and things like that goes to have those fully funded. And utility funding, $225,000 fringe. We're looking at $3.19 million on that. And that's it in a nutshell. I'll be glad to entertain any questions if we need to.
Well, first, in terms of these mini pumpers, how many mini pumpers are you asking for?
2.
2, and then that corresponds to how many full-time employees?
That would correspond to 6 lieutenants positions, 6 engineer positions, and 18 firefighter positions.
6, 12, 30 positions?
I'm sorry. Itemized and didn't tally. Yes.
Okay. And do you know how many calls you've received, say, in the last year where these mini pumpers would be used?
I don't have the data in front of me. All I can say is several times. It's a frequent occurrence. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't necessarily get to go where we need to be, but rather than being able to drive this equipment close to the structure that may be in danger, in many cases we're having to drag hose across yards, across large expanses of fields and things like that. I don't want to commit myself to a number. It is substantial, though. It happens on a frequent basis, and I apologize for not having that exact figure. I'll get it, though.
Right. And so the folks who would be operating these mini pumpers would be brand-new people. The current staffing couldn't do this if the best response to a fire was to send a mini pumper. Couldn't the existing staff do that?
Well, they could, but what it's going to amount to is you're going to have 2 pieces of equipment in one station, and there's a couple of different ways you could do that. You could split that company up and maybe have one person drive the mini pumper and one person or 2 people on the heavy piece of equipment. But when you get right down to it, you're still going to have the same number of people there. And what we're trying to do is to augment the number of folks in these hard-to-reach areas, because once you get there, the more people that you have on the scene immediately is going to help us to mitigate the incident in a much safer and a much more professional fashion. I'm not saying it couldn't be done. It could be done. It's not the way we would choose to do it.
Right. So it's not the way you choose to do it, but you could do it with the staff you got. Yes. And the 2 pumpers, where would those be based?
We're looking at 3 different locations. One we feel for certain is going to be located at Station 20 on Richard Jones Road in Green Hills, and it'll have the task corresponding to the Forest Hills area. Forest Hills has some very steep drives or means of access to many large homes in that area. In addition to it being very steep angles, you also have switchback turns and things of this sort. So we know one's going to go there. We got to do the data crunching. Still continue to do the data crunching. Right now we're looking at Station 30 in Joelton. More than likely than not, those Station 32 in Hermitage.
Okay. And in terms of the ambulances, you're asking for how many ambulance units?
3.
3. And we added last year.
We went from 19 to 22 static units, full-time units last year, and what we're hoping to pick up this year is 3 more to make it a total of 25.
And has the number of calls gone up in the course of this year?
Yes, sir. Let me see. I believe it's been about a 7% growth from FY12 to FY13. Last year, as far as EMS in FY13, we showed 164,243 calls. At about the second week of March, we're showing 32,121. Now, those numbers, if you try to extrapolate that based upon those pure numbers, it may actually say, when you do the extrapolation, it may actually show you that you're getting fewer calls. But one thing that I'm not going to say EMS responses are seasonal, but we've had a pretty cold winter, and cold winters generally reduce the number of EMS calls we make. Now, as the weather gets warmer, what I'm saying is we generally pick up the majority of our calls when the weather gets nicer. So we're on point to do that. And if we didn't pick up more calls, which we feel certain we're going to, just due to the fact that once an EMS unit makes a call, if there's going to be a transport involved, you're generally looking at 1 hour as far as responding to that call, getting the person to the hospital, and the medic unit getting back in service. So we've got 22 in service now. Basically, that'll give you X number of calls a day. All I'm saying is if we can put more people in there, we can make more transports in a shorter time frame.
But we're at 21 now, right? And it was 19, 22.
22.
It was 16 when I came into office.
We funded 3 one year, and they did 3 more this year inside their existing budget.
Now, on the maintenance piece, which is 2 FTEs, what kind of maintenance do these folks do?
It's going to be anything, we call it facilities maintenance, but they also take care of city-owned lawnmowers. Anytime there's a plumbing problem that requires more than, using a plumber's helper or something like that, they take care of that. Any sort of electrical problem, they're going to take care of that.
All right. How many people do we have working in maintenance now?
Right now, we've got
3 full-time and 1 part-time.
3 full-time and 1 part-time.
Have you looked at whether contracting for those services, I mean, for instance, to hire somebody who can do the plumbing, the electrical, and everything else, finding the person with that talent to hire who has all those different skills, I would assume would be difficult. But have you looked at the possibility of contracting for those services instead of creating new government positions?
We have looked at that. As far as getting some firm figures on it, we haven't got that yet. But one of the things that you get into is, first of all, I guess I'll be a little colloquial in my speech here, but you pretty much have to be a jack of all trades as far as working in that facility, just due to the nature of the various maintenance issues that come forth. And I think as far as fulfilling the mission of the folks involved down there, we're better off actually hiring the people ourselves and setting the prerequisites of what they need.
And then the IT advisor, have you talked about that with Keith Durbin with
Yes, we've talked with him about that, and Leanne can expound a little bit on that if you care to.
That position is a result of the IT audit that was done at the Office of Emergency Management. The fire department is committed to assisting them in any way possible, and this specific position will help identify, plan, and execute the IT path for the Office of Emergency Management. And after that gets well underway, we expect within a couple of years, then that person will be split between fire and OEM.
Greg?
Chief, can you tell me a little bit more about Give me a brief overview of the fire marshal's office and how it's doing and what the needs are and what demand's like and has it increased and all those kinds of things.
Right. I think if you look at the development aspect in Nashville, I mean, the numbers are there to support the fact that they actually have increased as far as the things necessary for them to do, whether it's inspections, arson investigations, public education or what, just due to the growth that we're seeing in Nashville as we speak. Now, during the buyout, post-buyout, the former fire marshal left. We'd had a couple of folks leave before that, and these were critical players in the mission of fire prevention. And what we're trying to do now is to build that particular office back up. We've got the expertise there, but we've got to build it back up with having the key individuals in place.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor.
Rich? All right, well, thank you, and let me publicly thank you and all your colleagues for the great work you do keeping our city safe. I know it's a very dangerous job and also a job that's essential for the operations of the city, and you all do very, very well. Obviously, there's a lot here for us to think about, and we will, but thank you for your presentation.
Mike's first budget hearing.
That's right, your first, congratulations.
You couldn't tell I was a little nervous, could you?
No, you did a good job.
Maybe we need to keep it a few more minutes. Yeah, maybe we. Let's get into a few little.
Fringe benefits.
Fringe benefits.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So we got.